Right, hello folks. I just thought I'd just, pop on and just do a little video about something that I've just started thinking about. So I want to do every so often something a bit, kind of a bit different and just outline some of my thoughts, just like the other day where I did a little video looking at using GIS data to build up a timeline, for example. And I've just recently started getting into solitaire war games that you play, on a board. Essentially a board game, but um, I've been playing war games for a very long time. Oh, there's a noisy jet going over, which is now distracting me. You might be able to hear that. It'll probably be one of the F-15s from Marham or whatever the name of it, Mildenhall. Anyway, so I've been wargaming for a very long time, but playing mainly computer games like Combat Mission and things like that. Mainly Combat Mission actually, which have generally focused on kind of platoon to section, platoon, company combat during the Second World War and more modern theatre. And this is something I've been doing for a very long time now, probably since I was about 11, 12, give or take, 10, 11, 12, kind of the time when I got really interested in the Second World War. And more recently, this has branched out into playing like board games because I've always been interested in board games, but hadn't realised that you could actually buy board games that you can play by yourself, primarily war games. So these focus on, you have a little board and you roll your dice and you move your counters around, and it's actually surprisingly fun for me. Or I've taken to it instantly. I find it absolutely amazing, and most importantly, one of the things is it gets me away from a screen. So in my full-time job, I work writing archaeological reports for the Museum of London Archaeology, and this involves a lot of time looking at a screen. So I've been trying to think of ways that I can get away from a screen, because otherwise I end up like I can easily spend all day on a computer. When I finish work, if I go on a computer game, it's not good for my eyes. So I was thinking about ways to kind of do a bit of wargaming without having to sit at a computer. So now I just sit at the kitchen table. Um, and this kind of just got me thinking about the importance of kind of having an experience or finding ways of getting experience of military operations. So getting your head around how a military unit is organised, how a military unit operates in the field, especially during the Second World War, because it's vastly different to how modern infantry works, for example, and how to get your head around use of landscape. And it's just, yeah, my mind has just clicked literally just 5 minutes ago that wargaming can give you an insight into this, which a lot of people don't get. So things like, tanks are seen as invincible or, you know, um, all encompassing. They just control the battlefield and there's nothing you can do about it. But the reality is that, a tank, when supported by infantry, especially without infantry, sorry, in an urban environment, is massively vulnerable. And this got me thinking about things like nodal points in the UK's, defensive network, where urban landscapes were heavily fortified primarily to defend against tanks. And also thinking about things like visibility from a tank. So once a tank is buttoned up, that is, all the hatches are closed, visibility is extremely poor. So I was just thinking of like, how can someone get an insight into that, especially if you're just starting out? And this got me thinking about then accessible ways to kind of get into wargaming and things like that. So recently I was looking for like beginner games I can, you know, play as a board game. And one of those that popped up that got a lot of recommendations is this here, Lone Sherman by Mike Lambo. So you can pick these up on Amazon for. He's got a whole series of these books, but you can pick these up on Amazon for 15 quid a book, which I think is just absolutely brilliant. It's relatively accessible for a board game. Some of them I'm looking at now, they're like 70, 80 quid, and that is extremely expensive. But these provide you, Mike Lambo's books provide you with a massively accessible introduction. So playing this has made me really think about tank combat. So you play as a single tank, and you're taking on. It's not very realistic in that sense, but you're taking on like other tanks and infantry and all this stuff, and it gets you thinking about how to effectively operate a tank to the best of its ability and how to avoid getting overwhelmed and things like that. And yeah, if you're wanting a way of kind of getting your head around tank combat, then pick this up. I'll put the links in the description below. So you do something. You get like a little thing on the back where it has all your counters. You can download these online as well, and you put them onto cardboard. Using like an A4 sheet, and then you cut them out and you make your little counters, and then you move these around the board. You roll dice. It's really engaged me, and it's actually started getting me to think more about making decisions, kind of not necessarily on the fly. So, excuse me, when you play like a computer game or a computer war game, in particular, um, what they call real-time strategy, where you have to make decisions on the fly. It doesn't necessarily, or for me at least, I tend to kind of not necessarily think things through and rush. While this, because you're taking things in sequential turns and you're rolling dice, it gives you the opportunity to think and therefore draw conclusions from the actions that you're taking. And you see how these, your tactical considerations play out, which is actually quite cool and gets you thinking a lot more. So this is something that I recommend doing if you're wanting to get a better understanding of how to read the landscape and how to understand how things like tanks and infantry operate, then go have a look into wargaming. If you're wanting to get a very basic introduction to like tank combat, look at Lone Sherman. Once I've completed that book, I'm going to pick up another of Mike Lambo's books, which is called, I think it's Fields of Normandy 2, which portrays US platoon infantry operations, which I'm hoping will then give me another additional insight into infantry operations, although from the US perspective. But it should give me a better idea of how to operate a platoon, for example, which is something I'm quite well versed in from playing Combat Mission, but playing on a board game should hopefully give me an insight into thought process behind it. And operate in a specific landscape. So, anyway, that's how I'm justifying it in terms of buying the next book, which is also 15 quid, which isn't too bad. Um, and on that point, also there are some accessible games which focus specifically on um, it's generally tied Operation Sea Lion, that type of thing, but focus on the home forces. And one of the most accessible of those is called Battle Academy or Battlefield Academy, if I can say it properly, which was a game by the published by the BBC in 2010. And this is extremely accessible. So this game you can buy on Steam, which again I'll post links below, for about £13, which isn't too bad. And that has a specific add-on or DLC downloadable content for £8.50 called Operation Sea Lion. And again, this is a turn-based game, but with this focusing on Sea Lion specifically, I bought it just because it was very cheap, and I thought I was expecting it to be just home guard and all this stuff, but it does actually represent the regular and territorial forces, although not massively realistically. You get one of your first missions where the Germans invade, you've got the Home Guard defending a coastal sector, and that's not something that would have happened, especially in 1940-41. It was very rare to find the Home Guard in the front line. But as the thing pans out, it gives you an idea of the relationship between the Home Guard and the regulars and territorials. Gives you this idea of landscape context and combat. Pepper's going mad. Little bouncy bean. And it gets you thinking about how to move infantry vehicles and infantry and tanks and all this in a landscape, and gets you to think about, you know, um, the actual combat side of things. So that is extremely accessible. Again, less than 20 quid, you can get yourself a relatively good little war game or an introduction to wargaming. And this again will hopefully give some insight into the actual combat and get you thinking more about landscape and how you move an enemy. Why do I keep on saying enemy? How you move an infantry or tank unit through an enemy occupied area, how you counterattack, how you defend, and all this stuff. So, yeah, I'll post links to that in the description of this video, but it's well worth checking out. So, yeah, check out Lone Sherman by Mark Lambo if you want a very, very basic and really fun introduction to kind of board game combat on your kitchen table, and check out Battle Academy. Oh, it is on Steam as Battle Academy, yeah. If you want to get a better idea of, if you want to get into kind of computer wargaming. But yeah, I was just thinking about this morning after playing a couple of rounds of Lone Sherman, doing really well at first and then getting knocked out by a single shot from a Panzer IV in Mission 5, and then doing terribly because I made one mistake, which in hindsight now has got me really thinking, kicking myself for making this really elementary mistake in terms of moving my tank into an arc of fire. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to do these videos every so often where I just have a think and a chat about some of the things I'm currently thinking of, and yeah, I say quite important from my perspective in terms of my development as an archaeologist has been using war games. Yeah, I just thought I'd give you some insight and give you some pointers on how to get started with this. So, oh, that's been useful. I'll see you all later. Thank you for watching. Bye.